Hello and welcome back to the Sports Booth YouTube channel. My name is Luke and today we are running through a review of the second week of the Autumn Nations Series, the end of year tours, the end of year international rugby that we saw played over the weekend, finishing off this morning with the English versus the Argentinians game. But let's go back to the first game this weekend, Italy versus Samoa. Let's have a look at that. 49-17 to Italy, I think, took everyone by surprise. Not by the fact that Italy won. I don't think it's such a surprise, but it's more the scoreline and the way they played. I think pre-going into this tournament, Samoa had come off the back of a Pacific Cup Nations where they had beaten Australia, Fiji, and Tonga. So it was like you expected quite a bit from the Samoa side. So it's hard. It's a hard one to kind of review because you don't know if you're like impressed by Italy or disappointed by Samoa. Now, I think the reasonable expectation is to probably be both. I was impressed by the way Italy played. I was impressed by the way they built their structures, the lines they ran, the way they played as a team. And then the exact opposite can be said about the Samoans. It's all the simple stuff for the Samoans that really cost them in this game. 20 handling errors compared to 8 for Italy, and then 28 missed tackles compared to 18 for Italy. If you're leading those two stats and by those margins, it's never going to be a good performance. So, I mean, you can maybe give the Samoans, I guess, a skip on this one just purely because first game on this tour. But I think a lot more was expected from the Samoan team. A debut for Jeffrey Tumunga-Allen, former All Black. So, I mean, there are some positives that they're building nicely for the World Cup in a squad. For the Italians, fantastic. A couple of star performers. Paolo Gabrisi, I spoke about him in the preview one video I did, where if he stands up, this team's very, very good and a good chance of beating quite a few teams. He put on a clinic, I think 3 try assists in the end. Monty Ioane, again, another player who stood up on their left wing. A great signing for the Melbourne Rebels, a good pickup there and some fantastic play by him and a really strong forward pack play. Their Lucies were strong in all areas. So a really, really good performance by Italy to kick off their campaign. The second game up was Scotland against Fiji. Scotland coming off the back of a loss against Australia the week before. We're probably looking to make a statement. Hogg was back in there, starting at fullback. And at halftime, you'd probably be a little bit worried if you're a Scottish fan. I mean, the Fijians were playing their style. It was their type of game, and the Scots were really struggling. They turned it around in the second half, dominated. And what changed, I guess, from it was really the discipline by Fiji. And it's always kind of been one of those things that you kind of always have the issue with the Fijian team is they play with flair, flying Fijians, but they've got to maintain discipline, and they gave up just about double penalties. I think it was an 18 to 11 count in the end. 3 yellow cards in that second stint for the Fijians. Just really halted their progress, halted their momentum, and cost them this game dearly. Realistically, they were in with a fight, finished 28-12. But yeah, I think Fiji will be bitterly disappointed with the end result due to the fact of They were in this game and they were looking really good, looking strong. So if they can cut out those discipline errors, this Fijian team can go and can beat some of these teams on this tour. Wales versus the All Blacks was the third game, and a good one to review, I guess, as an All Blacks fan. The All Blacks did the job, 55-23 in the end. This always seems to happen when we play Wales. We put in a really good performance. It happened last year before we then went on to get beaten by Ireland and France, but we put on a really good performance against Wales, and I think it's that mutual respect against Wales. They're as much rugby-loving nation as we are. I know there was lots of talk, it had been 60-odd years since the Welsh had beat us. The aura's been lost, but, after you come back from the week that's just been and everyone else, if anything, the All Blacks aura just went to another level and kind of hushed a lot of the critics, including probably myself too a little bit with the performance. Geordie Barrett at 12 is becoming more and more a no-brainer. Just the way he plays, the way they use him in and around the field, his crossfield kick try where he went up above the opposition and scored it is just incredible. So yeah, I mean Wales to to score 23 points is good, but you can't concede 55 against a team, especially like the All Blacks. You're never going to be able to outscore them with 55 points. That's just not going to happen. So yeah, I was impressed by a lot. Aaron Smith and Hardy Savia, that combo's coming around. That was Aaron Smith's, I think, best game in over a year. So I think if he can keep up that momentum, when Aaron Smith is playing well, normally the All Blacks are playing well, and so hopefully he can keep that building and that momentum going for the rest of the tour. But yeah, a dominant performance by the All Blacks. It's still not smooth sailing for the All Blacks. They doubled the Welsh in handling errors, but where the game was lost was the missed tackles. I think the Welsh doubled about the All Blacks in missed tackles, and you can't miss tackles, especially against the All Blacks. We're in there in that mood to score tries, and that's what the Welsh did. So yeah, a big, I guess, statement made by the All Blacks. For the Welsh, the need to turn it around pretty quickly. They had an opportunity where everyone's kind of talking the All Blacks at the lowest. Now they need to respond. They've obviously been beaten well there. How they respond, I think there was a lot of talk that this is a weak Welsh side, but then they went over to South Africa and proved a point, and now to play this way against the All Blacks, I think they'll be bitterly disappointed. Game 4, Ireland against South Africa, number 1 against the world champs. The game went up against its billing. It was two big physical packs. They've come together, in the URC. Their club comps are playing together now. Club teams are playing together. And it was an intense game, a physical game, injuries on both sides. And realistically, it was a game of two very similar styles. Like to tick over the scoreboard, like to play physical in your face. What more can you ask for when you have the world champs against the number 1s, number 1 against number 3? That was a game right to the end to decide it, 19-16 for the Irish. It's a big win for the Irish, and as much as the Irish are the number 1 team in the world, it's one of those questions where are the Irish number 1 team in the world because they deserve it, or are the Irish number 1 team in the world because the other teams are dropping? Now, that's not me questioning that at all. I don't want to say that, but I do know that there's that myth that, the world rankings and their numbers and the equations, they've beaten the All Blacks in the series and definitely deserve to be above the All Blacks. There was, them and the French are right there. This win against South Africa, although at home, is a massive statement win for the Irish. And it's winning these games. And that's what I think South Africa will be disappointed with. Rasmus back in the box, and you go, if South Africa had knocked them over, the Irish here, it's a big statement win for the South Africans. In the end, what cost them, I think, is not having Andre Pollard, and that's not a shot at Damien Wallabies. He was fantastic, just goal kicking, and Pollard hasn't been outstanding this year with goal kicking, but those pressure moments, I know Cheslin Kobe was kicking towards the end, and just missed a couple of key kicks, and that cost you games. I know Sexton missed a couple of kicks as well, and that's the difference, as we'll talk about in the England and Argentina game. A professional goal kicker, kicking above 80%, if you can get up to that 90% range, makes the world a difference. But two physical packs that came together gave us the game that expected. Really, in my mind, after this week, probably 1 and 2 teams in the world showed off, deservedly so. Like, the way South Africa played and fought during that game was fantastic. I think, Irish definitely looking like the best team in the world now, and I don't think there's much argument around that. The second to last game was the French versus the Wallabies, the Australians versus France, a big one for Australia. For France, it was a question and me and Husey had been talking about this on the podcast. What team are they going to send out? They've got South Africa next week. What are they going to want to see? What are they going to want to deliver from this game? Well, they named pretty much their best team, if not their best team possible, and one hell of a game. I'm going to say game of the round, I think. The way these two teams attack, I think a lot of teams are going to be watching the way Australia defended the halves, and especially Dupont. Although he was, relatively held down, he still had a very good game, I thought, but they D'd up really well and took him out of the game. The Australians had a great game plan. They stuck to it. Rena, you can tell, is moving this team. But when the big moments come and you can't celebrate a loss, as Drew Mitchell, I think, wisely said at the end of the coverage on Stan Sport, you've got to win those big moments. And they didn't. Jock Campbell had a fantastic game. Fantastic debut start for the Wallabies, but he missed a crucial tackle at the end, and it's definitely not his fault. Tom Wright also missed a tackle as well against Damien Pinot, his opposite winger, who scored a lovely try, and he's one of the top wingers at the moment. It was really interesting. I was watching this game, and I saw Tom Wright obviously go right round him, and I was like, oh, maybe he's lost a step, but he showed at the end there with his pace and to finish that try, that boy hasn't lost a step at least. But yeah, I think Wallabies will be happy with their performance, but you've got to win those games, and at crucial times they didn't win the crucial moments, and I think that's what they'll be disappointed for. The try before the end of the half to let France take the lead into the half, and the try at the end of the game, Rooney will be highlighting those areas as key improvements. For the French, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed. You know, you're the second-ranked team in the world. You're playing the 9th-ranked team in the world, or the 7th, whatever the Wallabies were sitting at after their win against Scotland. And you didn't, everyone was expecting a dominant performance, and it was more a good performance. And don't get me wrong, this was two heavyweights, and I don't think Australia are as bad as people tend to see, but they're not winning games. And so I think many thought that the French would dominate on their way to the big match up against South Africa. Didn't happen. There was many good performers as well for the Wallabies. I think Nick Frost is taking a massive step up. There's 2 games in this tour, and I've rated him very highly in my books at least, in the locking position, which is something the Wallabies need. They need a lock. You know, Darcy Swain's obviously had his issues. Caden Neville's 33. Matt Phillips is Matt Phillips, and we're unsure how good of a lock he can be. If Frost can take that step up and be that high-level lock for the Wallabies, that's massive. Obviously, we've got Skelton and Arnold, and I think the Wallabies need to get rid of the Gillalor earlier, now or never type thing, because, yeah, that heading into the World Cup, they need both Arnold and Skelton, I truly believe. And if Frost can keep playing the way he is, I think he'll be right in that mix of top locks in the comp. He's an athlete. Yeah, again, he doesn't look great while he runs, but he does have a good top-end speed. Showed it in the under-20s comp, if you haven't seen that try. But yeah, I think some big players. Frost was one. I think Iki Tau's just so solid. Fekete, until he got injured, definitely make the Wallabies look better. And everyone says, oh, you're just saying that because of the long-range try. But there's a lot I really like about Fekete. Foley's slotted in there and can show he can do a job. Whatever halfback they've put around him has worked. Tom Wright keeps delivering in big moments. And then, yeah, I think Taniela Tupou's starting to improve his game. Slipper, an enormous performance against a big French back. I think he played 77-odd minutes. So, yeah, a really, really tough performance from the Wallabies, but heartbreak in the end, and you can't celebrate losses. So the French come away with the win. And the last game was the English versus Argentina early this morning for us in the Southern Hemisphere. And I mean, what a result for Argentina, 30-29 in Twickenham, the heart of English rugby, and just an incredible, incredible performance. Emiliano Boffelli is the man you have to talk about, the wing for Argentina. I think it was 8 or 7 penalties in the end and a try. Just kicks everything, scores tries, defends well, a superstar in the world of rugby, and getting a lot of praise, which he thoroughly deserves. Has been highly, I think, underrated in the game of rugby, and this performance has put him up in that upper echelons of players, those Artie Sarvias, the Sexton. If he can deliver for Argentina on a continued basis like this, with Cheika as their coach, he can take them places, Boffelli. He really can. Saying that, a massive, massive defensive performance from the Argentinians. They lost the possession and territory battle, 63-37 for the possession, and then 73-27 for the territory. So not a lot of possession, not a lot of territory, and a hell of a lot of tackling. They made 147 tackles and missed 17, compared to England making 61 and missing 6. So you just look at that and you go, everything was against them to not win this game. But as we saw when Argentina beat New Zealand in New Zealand, if they put up that wall against you, it is very hard to break down, and they will keep the points ticking over. You make a mistake, you get penalised inside your own half or anything within range, and Buffelli's got a hell of a range. They will tick those points over, and they can score tries at the drop of a hat. Carreras, the number 10, was very good for them as well. Just that back three, or the back row, I should say, is athletic. It's just, this Argentina team is getting me excited for them to enter the World Cup next year. With Cheika in charge, they are a massive dark horse, I think. If Boffelli keeps playing the way he is, watch out. He will turn anything into points. And that's what the English learned. The English were not bad, 29 points, and they defended not too poorly either. But they just couldn't keep up in the end with Boffelli's boot, and Farrell kicked well. Some massive heavyweight clashes throughout this week. Some really big performances. Follow our Instagram page if you want to see who kind of I rank highly. We do MVP rankings and a team of the week. So make sure you click the link in our description or head over to Instagram to have a look at those. But that is the first proper week of the Autumn Nation series, the second actual week. I'd love to hear your opinions for who stood out for you, who you thought played really well. We're looking forward to a massive week next week. The game of the round, obviously the French versus South Africans next week. Who's going to win that? Who's going to take the steps up, I guess, our power rankings ladder for the top 10 of the Autumn Nation Series teams. For now, thank you for joining me. We will be back again next week to do a review of week 3. Bye.